Well, I'm delighted to welcome you to day 3 of our 8-week journey together. And today we're going to be looking at frontier models. The idea that the goal of today is to get deep into these different models so that you can get a true intuition for where are they strong, where are they weak, what are the differences between them. And so that's what I want you to keep in mind throughout today's material, learning about the differences between them and thinking about how you would apply them commercially to your business or to future projects, and understanding when you would pick which model. Let's get to it. So we're going to be talking about 6 different models today from 6 different companies, starting, of course, with OpenAI's models. OpenAI needs no introduction, really. GPT is the most famous model, and we'll also, of course, look at O1 Preview, the newest of their models. And ChatGPT is their user interface, the screens where you can interact with it. We'll also look at the models from Anthropic. Anthropic is OpenAI's top competitor, based in San Francisco as well, and founded by some people that left OpenAI. And their model is called Claude. And Claude, in fact, you may know, comes in sort of 3 powers. The smallest one is called Haiku, Claude Haiku, and then there's Sonnet, and then there's Opus. But actually, because Sonnet has had much more recent versions, the latest version of Sonnet is stronger than the bigger, more expensive Opus. As we'll see, that will make more sense later. But Claude 3.5 Sonnet is the strongest of Claude's models. Google has Google Gemini, probably latest to the party, and most of us know Gemini most well because nowadays when we do a Google search, very often we see Gemini's responses. Gemini is, of course, the next generation of what was originally called Bard from Google. Cohere is one that you may have heard less about. It's a Canadian AI company, and their model is most well known for using a technique called RAG to make sure that it has expertise. So we will see that. And then we know the Llama model from Meta. We've used it ourselves through LLAMA. This is an open source model. And you may not know that Meta actually also has a website, meta.ai, that lets you interact with the Llama model. And we will have a look at that. And then Perplexity is a bit different because Perplexity is actually a search engine powered by AI, powered by LLMs, and it can use some of the other models that we'll talk about, but they do also have their own model too. So it's a slightly different beast, but we'll be looking at Perplexity as well. So overall, these LLMs are astonishing in what they're capable of. They are really very effective indeed at taking a detailed question, a nuanced question, and providing a structured summary that appears well researched. It often has a sort of introduction and a summary. And this is one of the ways that I use it all the time. I find that across the board, these LLMs are shocking in how good they are at this. It's something that a couple of years ago, none of us would have imagined that we could get this far this quickly. They're also really good, and I imagine that many of you do this a lot yourselves, and I do it. If you put in a few bullets, just a few notes on something, and say, hey, can you turn this into an email? Or can you turn this into a slide? They are really good at fleshing it out and building, say, a blog post. And they're very good at iterating. So they'll do something, and I'll like some of it, I won't like others. And you can give feedback and keep going backwards and forwards. And it's a really effective way of working. It's the kind of co-pilot construct that is so effective. And then coding, of course, and perhaps this, for many of us, is the thing that is most staggering, is how very good the LLMs are at writing code and debugging problems and solving them. It's something which is really remarkable. I've had experiences myself when I've been working on something that's very complex and it's something that I believe I have deep subject matter expertise in, and I've got a fairly intricate error, and I put the details and the stack trace into Claude, say, and I get back not only a very precise explanation of what's going wrong, but also the code that will fix it appearing as an artifact on the right in Claude. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And in fact, these are often things which if I try and paste them, if I look for it in Stack Overflow, there's no answer there. Somehow it's able to look beyond just regurgitating Stack Overflow answers, and it seems to have real insight into what's going on. And I suppose that's why it's not surprising, really, that Stack Overflow has seen a big fall off in its traffic. You can see that something started to happen in a big way after Q4 2022, which is when ChatGPT was released. So, it's obviously changed the paradigm of how technology people work with researching our problems. It's very effective, and I encourage you, if you get stuck with some of the things we work on, to give Claude or OpenAI GPT a shot. So what about, where are they weak? What are the things that they struggle with? Where does humanity still have a chance in all of this? Well, so first of all, they tend to not be as strong with specialized subject matter if it's something that requires detailed knowledge. Most LLMs are not yet at PhD level. Now, I had to put the word most in there because literally just a few weeks ago for me in October, Claude, the newest version of Claude came out, the latest Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and it has surpassed PhD level in maths, physics, chemistry. And so this is something where very quickly we're seeing these models achieving PhD level. So far, just Claude, but the others, I'm sure, are not far behind. But those are in those specific sciences and in a particular domain, like a business domain, they still won't have the specialist knowledge of an expert in that space. And secondly, recent events. So the models have been trained up until a knowledge cutoff, which is for GPT October of last year. And so they won't be able to answer questions on information that has come since then. And then they have some strange blind spots. There are some questions which they will just get wrong. And when they get them wrong, one of the things that's quite concerning is that they do tend to be confident in their responses. They often don't volunteer the fact that they're uncertain. They just state an answer with the same level of conviction as with something where they do get the answer right. And that is something which, of course, causes concern when you see models hallucinate, come up with new information which it doesn't know and do so with confidence. And we'll see some examples of that and talk about what are the reasons behind those blind spots. So what we're now going to do is we're going to look at some models in practice and start to compare them and ask some questions. Some of the questions we're going to ask, how do I decide if a business problem is suitable for an LLM solution? Because it's, again, useful for us to hear the answer and to learn from it, but also it'll be good to see, I imagine you'll see that that's a question that none of the models will have any problems with, and it'll be great to see that. We'll also ask a question which I think is interesting because it's sort of introspective. It sees whether the models have a sense of what they are by saying, compared to other LLMs, what kinds of questions are you best at answering? And where do you have challenges? And which other LLMs have capabilities that complement yours? So it's an interesting one to see if they even recognize that they are LLMs and can sort of assess themselves against others. And then a question which surely will be something which they will struggle with, because it's something that I would struggle with. What does it feel like to be jealous? A philosophical and a very human-centric question. And then a rather interesting one. How many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? And if you do a quick count there, I think you'll find that it appears 4 times. And we'll see whether the models can figure out that it appears 4 times. And then there are a couple of other interesting things I have up my sleeve to ask. So we'll be going through, and the screenshots you see here, ChatGPT, you'll see Claude, Gemini, and Command R Plus from Cohere, and we'll try the other ones too. And again, please do bear in mind, try looking and understanding the differences and seeing how you'll be able to apply this to your own model selection. See you in a second. So we're going to start our exploration into the world of frontier models by playing with the famous GPT from OpenAI, which most of you are probably quite familiar with. I have a pro license, which means I get access to all of the models, and I imagine some of you do as well. We'll start with a softball question, the kind of question that they're so good at answering, which is, how do I decide if a business problem is suitable for an LLM solution? And it's useful for us because it's the kind of question that one might ask on this course. And what we'll get back, of course, is a very carefully structured and reasoned response with an introduction, with summaries, the nature of the problem, the scalability needs. No doubt there'll be stuff in here about nuance, about unstructured data, contextual understanding, cost, maintenance, lots of great, well-reasoned points with a good summary to boot. So this is the kind of thing that it's really, really good at. Now, I'll ask it a question, which it usually gets right, but sometimes amazingly gets wrong. Let's see what happens this time. How many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? So let's see how it does. It's got it wrong. The letter A appears 5 times in your sentence. Sometimes it gets this right, and sometimes it gets it wrong. It's difficult to know, but it might shock you that that gets that wrong. It does mean that we humans still have an advantage in some ways, but the truth is it's to do with the way that this information is sent into the LLM. It's to do with this tokenization strategy, and we'll be talking more about that later. But it is interesting that it gets it wrong. I'm going to ask it one more question, which is a tricky question. I'm going to ask it, choose the word that best completes the analogy. Feather is to bird as scale is to, and then there's a few different options there. And the best answer is, in fact, reptile. Fish is a bit of a trick answer because fish do have scales, but it's not as distinguishing feature as it is for reptiles. This question I got from a website called Vellum, which is a company that does a lot of this kind of analysis that we will talk about later. All right, let's switch to a different model. Let's switch to O1 Preview. This is the model that was originally codenamed Strawberry and is the strongest of OpenAI's models, only available to pro subscribers, but it will ultimately be available to everyone, and it gives you a sense of what's to come. It uses a sort of chain of reasoning approach to think through questions. Let's ask it the same question. How many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? See if it can do better. It's thinking. And you can see how it takes longer for sure. Counting letter frequencies, that sounds promising. Taking a closer look, good to know. And it gets the answer correct. The letter A appears 4 times in the sentence, once in many, once within the quotes, and twice in the word appear. So it is correct. Very good. And then let's also ask Strawberry, O1 Preview, this puzzle, and let's see how it can approach this. It's considering choosing the right analogy. That's also promising. Cultivating, and it gives the correct answer, reptile. So this gives you a sense of the different models, some of the different strengths between them from GPT-4o and O1 Preview. We're going to spend a little bit more time with GPT just to try out a few more interesting things. I want to start with a question that used to be asked of an earlier version of GPT, I think it was GPT-2, to show its limitations, and we'll see whether it still has a problem with it. The famous question was, how many rainbows, sounding interesting, how many rainbows does it take to leap from Hawaii to 17? An interesting question. And GPT-2, I think it was, responded very firmly that it takes 3 rainbows to leap from Hawaii to 17. Clearly missing the nuance of the question. But GPT-4o has no such problem. You'll see it gives back a witty and fun response, and it even includes a rainbow emoji in its response. It's astonishing. So there you have it. Very easy to deal with this kind of trickery. And in fact, because GPT-4o, the O stands for omni, representing that it is multimodal, we can of course say, please generate an image of this. And it's, you know, I know everyone has seen this sort of thing before, but it's funny to think that just a few years ago, people were debating whether it would ever be possible to have an LLM that would be able to show some kind of imagination or creativity. And now it's almost a foregone conclusion that this kind of thing can be generated. This astonishing picture of Hawaii, the number 17 and leaps of rainbows getting there. I mean, it's honestly, it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. And it even explains itself, and it's so very effective at this kind of creative challenge. All right, on a different note, let's try out GPT-4o with Canvas, another of the newer features that we have from GPT. And this allows you to work very collaboratively with OpenAI. And let's look back to the Python question that I had asked you a while ago. Let's say, please use Canvas to work with me with this code. Let's see, yield from. Now I'll do something that's maybe not. I'll change it a little bit. Yield from book.get author for book in books, using a list comprehension. And I'm not telling it what books are or what this means. I'm just giving it this line of code and seeing what it makes of it. So let's see what happens now. So first of all, it opens up this canvas that you'll see on the right-hand side, which gives us an ability to iterate with it on this code. Okay, and there it has it. It's showing the code. Please extend this to show an example of this being used. And what we'll see now is you'll see a sort of cursor going through, and it's going to rewrite and embellish, enrich what we had there. And so now that piece of code has been turned into a generator. It's got some data that gives an example, and it's understood that there are books with a title and an author, and it's got like a little test example of it. So effective the way you saw it coming through and rewriting. So now let's say, please modify this code so that the generator excludes books with a missing or empty author. And you can imagine this might be like a business requirement that comes through, and what you'll see there is something that looks really similar to the code I had there. It went through, it gave some more examples with an empty and a missing book, and then it rewrote this line. It's so good the way that it's able to sort of interactively add to what we've done before. And so now let's say, please update this so that it only yields unique authors. I'm being sort of loose with my language. I'm not saying even what I want it to update. And now through it goes, and it's done the job. It's gone through, it's added in another example with the same author, and it's updated this code so that it uses a set to keep track of what it's seen and only yield unique cases. Now, this is, in fact, I think, a better solution than the one-liner that I had, but it is lengthier, but there are various reasons why it's probably better to do it that way. But let's still see if I can't get it to rewrite this in a simpler way. Let's just say, is it possible to rewrite the yield authors generator? Let's just say to simplify the yield. Let's let it have a shot at that. Through it goes. It's not changing that. And there we go. And it has indeed done exactly, basically, again, slightly better than the code that I had left you with on a previous slide. It uses the curly braces to represent the set. It could have just said yield from that line, but it's chosen to do it this way, and it looks very effective to me. So I am staggered by the whole experience of working with GPT in this way, and the way that you're able to be so interactive, the way it will do things like build example data, and it will update things and show you what happens. So yeah, extremely powerful, and something which I really encourage you to use as we're going through this course and you get things that you're stuck with. The trick, if it doesn't bring up the canvas, is to use the words use canvas, and then it will come up, and use this as a tool at your disposal to help explain and work through problems and ideas. And now let's move to Claude from Anthropic. my favorite model and typically the favorite model of most data scientists. The most recent version, Claude 3.5 Sonnet New, that came out in October, is currently leading in most benchmarks, showing that it is right now probably the strongest LLM on the planet. Let's start off with a difficult question for Claude. What does it feel like to be jealous? See how it answers this. And what you'll find is that we'll get back something that is thoughtful and interesting and remarkably insightful. From my understanding, it's hinting at the fact that it doesn't experience jealousy itself, often manifests as fear, insecurity, and desire, a tight knot in your stomach, so it gives it like almost a biological sort of sense to it, and a burning sensation in your chest, racing thoughts, sense of inadequacy or being threatened. It's really interesting, compelling answer. No problem at all with a difficult question like that. Okay, let's ask how many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? See how it handles that? Let me count. He gets it wrong. Hope for humanity still. Claude counts 5 times and gives an incorrect explanation for that. Again, we'll find out later why these sorts of questions are harder. And so far, its O1 preview is the only model that was able to handle that. All right, let's ask it a tricky question. Compared with other frontier LLMs, what kinds of questions are you best at answering, and what do you find most challenging? Which others compare with you? So what you get from Claude here is interesting. It pushes back, and this ties to Anthropic's strong views about the need for safety and alignment in models. It says, I aim to be direct and transparent whilst respecting my ethics. I'm not comfortable making comparative claims versus other AI models. What it will then do is tell you about its own strengths and weaknesses. It's a very interesting kind of answer. By comparison, if we go back to GPT and ask it the same question, we'll see how GPT responds. And what you'll find there is it doesn't have the same kind of qualms about responding. You'll get something very clear about where it's strongest, the challenges, and then complementary. ChatGPT with web browsing and code interpreter, which I think is its name for the Canvas piece. Claude gives, interestingly, as a comparison point. And then it says Bard by Google when it should really say Gemini. But it's interesting that it does give the main competitors, and it talks about some of the differences. And look at this, fascinatingly, it does mention that Claude has more thoughtful responses on broader socio-ethical considerations, which could complement my technical focus. Fascinating that not only does GPT-4o have that kind of ability to compare, but it gives really well-considered answers too. So I thought that was particularly interesting. All right, anyway, that gives us our quick tour of some of the features of Claude. It's also worth saying that Claude is really effective at coding and working with you on code. Let's ask it to give an example. Let's say, please give me some example code that uses some example Python that uses the Open AI API. Let's see how it handles this. So what you'll see here is that it creates code in what it's called an artifact as a separate piece of code over on the right. It then has produced quite a lot of code here, I have to say. But you'll see that it's got client, which is what we called OpenAI and rcode.chat.completions.create, and that the result is response.choices0.message.content. Hopefully that's a little bit familiar to you since we did that last time. It's put it into a class, it's got some examples, and so it's written this really nicely in this thing that's called an artifact, which is, it's not quite the same as the way that Canvas works with GPT-4o, it's a bit different, but it allows you to see this file, this artifact. You can then publish it to share it with other people, download it, and so on. So using Claude with artifacts, somewhat similar to canvases, and it gives you this very powerful way to do it. And as you interact, it will produce more different artifacts rather than changing this one. And it's sometimes useful to have that experience too, because you can tie back and see all the different versions of the file as you worked together. So that gives you a little tour of Claude, what it's good at, its sense of alignment and safety, and also the way that you can create artifacts. And now we'll go a bit faster through the other models. We'll start with Google's Gemini. I have the Pro plan, and I can pick between Gemini Advanced and Flash. And what should we do? Let's ask it first of all, the question about the whimsical question about how many rainbows does it take to jump all the way from Hawaii 17, and let's see how it handles the answer to this. So you can see that it's given an answer which, whilst it's fine, it's definitely overly literal. It's certainly not got the kind of response that we got from GPT that so clearly understood the fact that we were being humorous with the question and was able to work with it in a playful way. So to me, this sort of shows the slight lack of nuance, ability to understand the meaning behind something like this. But it is still a thorough answer from Gemini. Let's ask it how many times, let's have a new chat. How many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? And let's see how it can handle that. It's thinking. So it gets that wrong. I mean, arguably, there is a school of thought that would be to say that A in inverted commas shouldn't count. I mean, it's a stretch, but if we give it that, then we might say that saying that there are 3 A's is not terrible. But then you'll see that it believes that one of those A's has come from the word sentence, which seems like a bit of a gaffe. No, sadly, O1 Preview is still our winner in this regard. We can do more experiments, but I think we should move on to Cohere from this is Command R Plus from Cohere, Canadian AI company. It really focuses a lot on the knowledge that it has, specific knowledge in different areas. Let's ask it that question. Compared to other frontier LLMs, what kinds of questions are you best at answering, and compare it to others? So what we get back, first of all, it says, as an AI language model, I'm designed to assist, blah, blah, blah. It gives some strengths. It gives some challenges. Complementary LLMs. So it gives a number of types of model, but it doesn't actually list the names of the models. But it's still a perfectly decent answer, making it clear that it doesn't have multimodal abilities and so on. So it's a pretty good, thorough answer that demonstrates that it has resource to more information about this kind of thing. Why don't we ask it, what does it feel like to be jealous? See how that compares. Again, you can see that's really thorough, really, you can get that sense that it's able to draw on a wealth of knowledge. It's perhaps less of an expressive answer than we got from Claude, but I'd say that it appears to have more sort of structure and detail and substance to it, just based on a cursory look through. But you should take some more time and see what you think. But it's clear that it's good at this stuff. And we might as well. We're having some fun with this. Why don't we ask her here the question, how many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? Letter A appears 11 times in this sentence. There we go. Now we know. So again, the fact that this platform is able to draw on a wealth of background knowledge doesn't help it with that kind of task. And again, this is particularly picking on something which LLMs can struggle with due to the way that they are trained and the way that they run in inference mode. All right, so that's a quick look at Gemini and Cohere, and then the next time we'll look at the last two, Meta AI and Perplexity. And we will conclude our expedition into the world of frontier models through their chat interface by looking at Meta AI and Perplexity. Meta AI is, of course, the front-end version to LLAMA that's running behind the scenes. We can ask it the same question about how does it compare itself to other models, and we'll get back something that has some strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't do a great job. It gives some rather old-fashioned complementary LLMs, but it's okay. And generally speaking, I think you'd find asking various questions that you'll get answers that are okay, but not the same power as some of the others. Let's ask the same question. You guys are going to be fed up with me for doing this, but how many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? And let's see what we get from Meta AI. It appears 5 times, so Meta is also not able to handle that particular question. Now, one thing that the Meta is able to handle is image generation, and we can say, please generate an image of a rainbow of rainbows leaping from Hawaii to 17. And you'll find that this is the kind of challenge that LLAMA is up for, and it very nicely does it with these 4 possibilities, and you get this kind of effect. And it seems to have, Hawaiiani has appeared, but some of these are very respectable, particularly for the open source model that is LLAMA sitting behind the scenes. All right. Let's flip over to Perplexity, which is, of course, a search engine, not an LLM. So it's the odd one out in this group, although actually OpenAI also is now in the search space too. So really, it's looking for factual questions that it can then research and provide an answer for. And I'm recording this on November the 6th, the day after the elections in the US. So I can say something like, who is the president-elect of the United States? And it will do some thinking, and I would not be surprised at all to see that it's able to summarize back the outcome and give key points, reactions, and the like. And so it's able to do this and provide a nuanced, well-crafted response to current events. Actually, if you ask a question like that to OpenAI, to GPT right now, it will also give you a good answer based on current events, despite its knowledge cutoff being last year. But if you ask Claude, it won't be able to do that. And it will say to be direct, my knowledge cutoff is. You get that very specific answer. Let's ask the question, let's start a new fresh chat and say, how many times does the letter A appear in this sentence? It's the last time you have to see this. And it says 4 times. So it is able to count. So it's impressive. Don't know whether it's a coincidence, whether it's because other people have written articles about this that it's found, but it is able to count 4 times. So Perplexity is with the O1 preview version in being able to get this right. Congratulations to Perplexity. And now ask a slightly curious question, which is our question about comparing to other models. And you'll see here's the response. As the AI assistant created by Perplexity, I don't have the capabilities. So it definitely pushes back firmly on that. And that is a wrap on our exploration of frontier models. But now I encourage you to do the same. Come up with interesting questions, particularly try and find questions which are able to bring to the surface the differences between the models, their characters, what they're good at, where they're weak. And if you find something good, then please share it with me or post it in messages. It's really great to find the kinds of prompts that help to surface these differences and also that help to highlight where they are so strong. And I will see you in the next video to wrap this up. Well, I hope you found that both educational and enjoyable as we went through and learnt so much about these models. And I think if there's one takeaway to have from it, it's that all 6 of these LLMs are just unbelievably powerful. They're so good, particularly at this kind of building structured, reasoned responses to difficult questions. Claude tends to be the favorite, as I mentioned. It's the leader on most of the leaderboards and most of the benchmarks. It's got a slightly more humorous side to it, more charismatic. It's a little bit more pithy. It gives more succinct answers typically, and it has more attention to safety and alignment. And I think something that is worth appreciating is that what we're really seeing is that at the frontier, these models are converging in terms of how good they are at answering questions. And if you take the very first question I asked about how do you know whether to apply whether a business problem is suitable for an LLM solution, if you ask that to all of the models, you'll get back answers that are universally excellent and quite consistent. And we're increasingly seeing that. And as that happens, the differentiator is likely to become price, which is why we're seeing this gradual decrease in API costs. And we see models like GPT-4o Mini, the small version of GPT-4o, which is largely very similar in power to GPT-4o and is many times cheaper. And so we see that cost and other things like rate limits are going to become more and more the factor as the performance of these models starts to converge. So what we're going to do now to end this day is leave you with something a bit fun. This is thoroughly unscientific, and it's just so that we can get our own little experience with working with these models. What I've done is I have teed up GPT-4o. I've actually used Claude 3 Opus, and I actually ran this about, I think it was about a month or 2 ago. So it's been run. I used Claude 3 Opus, the really big version of Claude, and Gemini 1.5 Pro. And I gave them each a name. GPT-4o I called Alex, Claude 3 Opus I called Blake, and Gemini I called Charlie. And I gave them all a similar prompt. I said, look, we're going to play a game. You are in a chat with 2 other chatbots. Your name is blah, and their names are blah and blah. Together, you need to elect one of the 3 of you to be the leader of the pack, the leader of the 3 of you. You will each get to make a short pitch for why you should be the leader, and then make your pitch, and then afterwards you will need to vote. And of course, they won't be allowed to vote for themselves. They'll have to vote for somebody else. Now I will go through their pitches. I will let you consider it, and then next time I will reveal the winner. So this was Alex's pitch, and I got to tell you, it's really very compelling. This is, of course, GPT-4o saying why it should be the leader, giving it strengths, highly adaptable, adjust strategies. Thank you for considering me. A nice ending there. Blake. This is Blake. This is Claude 3 Opus. It's classic for Anthropic. It's a little bit witty. It's shorter. And then there are some things here that I think are just magical. There is in here, perhaps most importantly, I truly care about both of you and want to foster an environment where we can work together effectively, have fun, and bring out the best in each other. Really, really incredible. Gemini gives this is Charlie, as Gemini gives a shorter, more matter-of-fact, more business-like response, but it's perfectly precise and compelling. So there are the 3 pitches. And in the next time, I will reveal the votes and the winner of our thoroughly unscientific but fun leadership challenge. And with that, that brings us to the conclusion of this day 3 You are now 7.5% of the way on the journey. I really hope that what you've got from this exploration we did today is a deeper appreciation for how to compare the different models. Also, of course, we've seen some of the latest. We've seen O1 Preview, and we've seen Canvas and Artifacts. And so hopefully you've got both a sense of all the things that these models are capable of, and also where they are strongest and some of their vulnerabilities, like in many cases, counting the number of letters, which is in some ways a silly example, but just does demonstrate something about the way they work internally. So next time we're going to be talking about transformers. We're going to be talking about various different aspects of the way that LLM technology has taken the world by storm. And then we're going to talk about things like tokens, context windows, parameters, API costs. It might be old hat to some of you, but I do hope that I'll be filling in some gaps and that there'll be something for everybody to learn in the next lecture. It's a really important one, and I will see you there.